Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the shepherd of Black Sheep. Today, I'm going to go over what spiritual narcissism can look like. And what I'm going to go over, I'm not diagnosing this person with anything, but the way he's talking does sound a lot like the way a spiritually narcissistic person would talk. And in my opinion, spiritual narcissism is a similar form of covert narcissism, because covert narcissism is when someone has all of the traits of narcissism, they just come out covertly, which makes them more difficult to detect. And I think when narcissism is wrapped in spirituality, it's another layer of covert. So just like with covert narcissism, it's difficult to detect. With spiritual narcissists, it's even trickier. And especially to me, it's more tricky than, say, religious narcissists, because that's more in your face. But a spiritual narcissist, they mix lies in with the truth, which always reminds me of what the Father Marin said in The Exorcist, that you have to be careful because the demon is going to mix lies in with the truth to attack you. So what you have to do is not listen to what the demon has to say. You only say what is necessary. That's the key. So with that, let's jump right in here to what this person had to say. So this is on the video that I posted on Instagram of Dr. Salerno and I, and it was a simple way therapists can determine who the abuser is in couples counseling. And this is also on YouTube, this clip too. But this person says, is someone really a victim now? First of all, what an invalidating question to ask. That's just ridiculous. And then he goes on to say, it's just not one who is responsible for the relationship. If there is abuse, one allows it by being self-harming. That right there is an extremely invalidating thing to say. It's flipping the script, and it's very similar to gaslighting, because they're saying, oh, if you were abused, it was basically your fault. You just allowed it to happen. And here's the thing, with what he's about to say moving forward, there's a time for looking at our side of the street, but that time is not instantly. And you have to do this with empathy, compassion, humility, and wisdom. And some of these spiritual narcissistic types, they're really just missing all of that. And he goes on to say, so if there's abuse, one allows it by being self-harming. Nonsense. The other person only mirrors that. So he's given the abusive person in this dynamic a free pass. And then he says, people need to start valuing themselves and get out of any relationship that isn't healthy for them, where they're not growing. Now, that's a true statement. When you stop treating yourself poorly, that's when you also meet others who will show you better behavior. Instead of being two wounded souls, heal yourself up. It's quite simple. And so there's a touch of condescension in there. And a narcissist is not just a wounded soul. And that's another dangerous thing to say, because it implies, oh, if they were to just heal their trauma, then all of a sudden they would get better and they would start treating you better. But as we've seen with our discussions with Dr. Salerno, and we've gone over what kind of treatments may even work for narcissists, but one thing that doesn't work is them talking about their childhood and acting like they have CPTSD. That doesn't help. So when they label it as two wounded souls, a very dangerous framing. Heal yourself up is quite simple. And no, it's not quite simple. It might sound quite simple, but for the fact you're going to say it's quite simple, that's a very belittling thing to say. And he's just oversimplifying what's going on here. So in this context alone, this paragraph, all sorts of invalidation, all sorts of gaslighting, flipping of the script, telling people there's no such thing as a victim. I think that's ridiculous. And then he goes on to say, I basically said that. I said, what an invalidating thing to say. Stop giving the abuser a free pass. You jump straight to blaming the victim for self-harming. That is obnoxious and a slap in the face to anyone who has been abused. He says, I haven't blamed anyone. Nonsense. He absolutely did. I've also been the so-called victim, and I know how painful it feels to stay in that role. And notice how he's implying like the victim is choosing to stay in that role. Because when people are in a trauma bond, a lot of times they just don't know what they don't know. It's not how as simple as he's making it seem. And then he's on to say, but I chose to heal and take accountability, not only for what I brought into the relationship, but also for what I allowed. And honestly, this is just not the right time for this. It is so obnoxious when people say this right away to someone who's been abused. I can't stand it because it's a slap in the face. And there's no wisdom, no empathy, no compassion, no humility in this condescending tone. It's just absurd. As children, we are innocent. As adults, we cannot always control what happens to us, but we can take responsibility for how long we stay in situations that keep hurting us. Down the line, you can. We hold responsibility toward ourselves to set boundaries, to choose differently, and to stop repeating old patterns. No one can continue to hurt us once we learn to set boundaries and choose differently. Not true. Do you think the Ukrainian woman on the bus, did she invite that into her life? Did she didn't have clear enough boundaries? No, sometimes bad shit happens. So I can't stand this person's attitude. It's two unhealed souls meeting for lessons. That's one of those spiritual, lofty things to say. Oh, and granted, this is why I say it's so tricky what he's saying here, which makes it so much more harmful. Down the line, I am all for people trying to adapt a mindset towards something that actually helps them in the present, looking at it in a way that helps us today. And it seems like he's kind of done that a little bit, but he's just not intelligent enough, or he doesn't have the wisdom and empathy to be able to give that message properly. Instead, he's kind of using it as a blunt tool and banging people over the head with it, not having any concern about where someone is in their journey. When someone's just getting out of an abusive relationship, this is not what they need to hear at all. And he says, we need to set boundaries, choose differently. It's two unhealed souls, not just two unhealed souls. The patterns will keep repeating until you stop treating yourself with more pain, break the cycle, and choose to heal. Pain may happen, but suffering continues only when we allow it. Not true. It can happen to anyone. Did that blonde Ukrainian woman allow that to happen? Do people that get blindsided in a car accident, did they allow that to happen? So these things, they act like it's so simplistic or it's black and white. It is not. There are lessons that we can learn from some of these things, but to make it as black and white as he's making it is just ignorant. That's not on someone else. If we allow it, that's on you. And then he goes on to be more condescending and a piece of garbage. I feel that you are hurting. So notice how he's trying to make it seem like there's a problem with me for disagreeing and calling out what he's saying. Perhaps go within and ask yourself why. True inner work is never easy, but it frees you. And once you step into it, you realize there is no blame game. Shame and blame don't heal either side. There is no victim or abuser role. What an invalidating thing to say. What heals is compassion, boundaries, and a deeper understanding that both have been through their own battles. And then heart, prayer, hands, or no. And that's the other thing these spiritual narcissistic types will do. They'll end with a heart or prayer emoji hands or high-fiving hands or love and light. And that doesn't negate any of the nonsense they just said. It's one of those little belittling things that they do at the end of it to make it seem like, oh, I'm so spiritual and I'm so loving. Never mind the fact that I just kind of spoke down to you, said you're hurting because you disagree with me. Shame and blame don't heal either side. How about accountability of calling out bad behaviors? That is not blame. That's accountability. That's a big difference, isn't it? There is no victim or abuser role. That is complete nonsense. That is complete nonsense. So if a person like this grows up and he has a daughter and their boyfriend or husband beats them, I'll make sure that he tells her that. Oh yeah, make sure you tell her there is no victim or abuser role. While he was punching you in the face, you just allowed it. See how obnoxious that sounds? You see how ridiculous that sounds, even saying it? It's ridiculous. What heals is compassion, boundaries, and a deeper understanding. I can't stand people like this, clearly. And this is why I think it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous because, especially if someone doesn't quite have an understanding of this dynamic yet, I could see how they could get pulled into this and they can think, oh, yeah, he's making some sense because not everything he said is wrong. But notice they pull all this nonsense into it. And it's just like, ugh. That's what makes it so tricky. And I ripped them a new one again. I said, yes, you definitely did blame. You first asked, can there even be a victim? Yes, there can. An extremely invalidating question to ask. Then you said, if there is abuse, the person allowed it, and the other person was just mirroring them. That is pretty close to gaslighting and gives the abuser a free pass for their behavior. They were not just mirroring, they were actively abusing because everything they do is about power, control, managing their image, narcissistic supply, and avoiding accountability. I take extreme ownership for everything in my life, and I practice radical self-respect because I don't consider myself a victim anymore. And I do think there's a place for personal responsibility and taking accountability. But that time is not right away. And you have to know someone's ready for that. But if you just start spouting it out of the mouth, what this person is, not knowing where someone is, that's ignorant. I said, and then I went on to say, but I have the wisdom to know that victims need support, encouragement, and validation when they first get out of an abusive relationship. The timing of when you say things matters. People look at their side of the street is a stage 2 of healing concept. True. Perhaps go within yourself and ask yourself why it isn't so important for you to tell a victim they allowed it, and that there is no victim or abuser. You even framed an abusive person as an unhealed soul, and that is extremely dangerous. They are not just an unhealed soul. You mix some good things with distortions and invalidating language. I think your sentiments are missing empathy, humility, and wisdom, and you are being a touch condescending. Me correctly calling out what you're doing does not mean I am hurting. That's one of the spiritual narcissists' favorite ways to flip the script. If you don't like something that they do, they'll say, oh, what did this bring up in you? There must be something that you need to heal, or you wouldn't have a problem with what I just said, or you sound triggered. And granted, and this is another tricky one, because sometimes the things that bother us the most, it can be a signpost of things that we really need to work on. But when they do it like this, that is just a shutting down of what's going on. That's a weaponization to deflect from their own problematic behaviors and say, no, you are the one with the problem because you must have more healing work to do. Because they act like if you ever don't like something, it means there's a problem. They act like you're not going to feel the emotions of life. And that's another BS framing too. People are going to go through the emotions when they're in a good spot too. Like anger is a justified emotion if you see injustice. It just is. You might feel sadness. You might feel anger. You might feel happiness. You might feel grief. You might feel resentment. There's all sorts of normal emotions that come up. But people like this, they try to weaponize those emotions to make it seem like there's something wrong with you. And I can't stand that either. And he goes on. Everyone else kind of jumps on him too. And then there's some more spiritually narcissistic gibberish. It's understandable, as he would say, that this can feel triggering. I got to go back to my obnoxious tone. It's understandable that this can feel triggering. Just to clarify, gaslighting means deliberately denying facts and twisting reality so that another person doubts their own perception. Simply not liking another perspective does not equal gaslighting, and labeling it that way trivializes both the concept and real abuse. But I guess saying there is no victim or abuser doesn't trivialize anything, I guess. That's fine. But to call out something they're doing as extremely invalidating or gaslighting, oh no. Now I'm trivializing what those terms mean. Another form, ironically, more gaslighting. Healing requires both compassion and responsibility. No human being is perfect, and everyone carries their own wounds. But at some point, each person should take responsibility for their own healing and for setting healthy boundaries. Both parties have responsibilities. Again, both parties have responsibilities. Like the other thing these spiritually narcissistic types will do, they are obsessed with making the victim take accountability as well. Oh, where's your responsibility? Where's your accountability for what happened? And sometimes, and except many times in abusive situations, that's just not reality. Like the abusive person is 99% to blame. 1% can be the victim ignoring red flags or not understanding narcissistic abuse. But don't ever forget, what the abuser did was way worse. And when they frame it like this and act like, oh, it's just a 50-50 thing, the abuser was just mirroring you, I can't stand it. But they go on to say, blah, 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 healing requires both compassion and responsibility. No human being is perfect, and everyone carries their own wounds, but at some point, each person should take responsibility for their own healing and for setting healthy boundaries. Both parties have responsibilities. Abusive behavior toward others can never be justified, and continuing to accept abuse without change also becomes toxic and abusive towards yourself. Trying to imply that it's an equal thing. You're just equally to blame as the abusive person. Nonsense. When I mention mirroring, it refers to the psychological reality that relationships often reflect unresolved wounds in both people. Again, this does not apply to a character disordered personality. If someone doesn't have a personality disorder, maybe. But when someone's abusive and has a personality disorder, this kind of thinking is extremely dangerous. Patterns that will keep repeating until one or both decide to heal, set boundaries, and break the cycle. Holding on to the victim identity for years without insight or accountability can become self-destructive. And notice this, holding on to. He has never even once validated the person's being a victim at all. And now he's going on to say, oh, people who hold on to a victim. Another black and white thing. There is a time, I agree, being a victim is not supposed to be the final destination. It is supposed to be a step on the path to recovery. But he is not giving any time for that to occur. You need to be there now. And I see this happen to a lot of people that are narcissistic, and then they get into these healing spaces. They skip/forget all of the time it took them to get to a better place. And then they'll talk to people in the beginning from where they are now, completely neglecting all of the hard work and the pain and the process it took to get them to that place. And I would also argue, if this is the place they got, perhaps how they went is not the best way. Perhaps they actually missed some things here, and maybe you shouldn't learn from this kind of person. But again, I don't disagree with everything he said, but the way he's saying all of this is just, it does make me mad. And why does it make me mad? Because it makes me mad when people give the abuser a free pass. It makes me mad when someone instantly wants to just blame the victim and say, nope, you just allowed it. And to me, that's covertly antagonizing. They're trying to antagonize the victim and making it seem like it's just a 50-50 thing. Oh, you're 50% to blame. And in reality, there is no abuser. There is no victim. Anyway, so that mentality is annoying because it is covert, but it's also completely antagonistic and invalidating as well. And yeah, I don't like it when people do that. I don't like it when people that have been abused and then someone starts talking to them like this. I don't like that. That makes me mad. But he goes on to say, holding on to the victim identity for years, no one's saying to do that. Either the message resonates or it doesn't. I've said what I need to say, and I'm setting my boundary here. Wishing you inner peace and a beautiful day. Another one of those spiritual narcissistic signing offs. Oh, inner peace and a beautiful day. Heart and whatever the heck that other emoji is. But I thought that was a great example of the covert use of spiritually narcissistic language. Ugh. Hideous. Hideous, if you ask me. Ugh. Get it off the screen. Hello there, George. Olga's right, Ellie. Bear says, welcome, everybody. Guys, did anyone see Obama gaslighting the Charlie Kirk assassination? What did he say? I don't know. It was gross. I'm not into politics, but damn, that was some nonsense. Bear, you have to let me know what he said. I don't know what he said. Sorry, I need to listen and shush. What did Obama say? Yes, that's my question too. He forgot to say namaste. He could have said that, George. I'm surprised he didn't. But, we'll look it up, though. We'll see what Obama said about this. But I just can't stand that. I can't stand it. And again, it's not because I feel like he's invalidating me. I feel like he's invalidating others because I'm not just coming out of an abusive relationship anymore. Years ago, I was. And I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like to be in that place where I'm devastated and then to have someone just come in there and say, well, you just allowed this. You allowed this to happen. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, there's a time for that. Stage two. But if you actually care about the person you're talking to, you give them support, encouragement, and validation first. That doesn't mean you never challenge them ever. It doesn't mean you never get them to look at their side of the street too. As a wizard/coach, I'd be doing people a disservice if I'd never told them to look at their side of the street. But there's a way to say it. And that's the other part that's missing in people like that. They just don't know how to say it. And it just comes off blah. Blah. Ellie says, all the verbiage of the spiritual narc is self-serving and an avoidance of real helpful actions. That's a great way to put it, Ellie. Great way to put it. Sam, I'm so glad you are down to earth and real. Thank you for being you. You've empowered me. I'm not alone anymore. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I can only be me. I'm not very good at being fake or pandering. So what you see is what you get. I'm an authentic wizard. An authentic wizard. For better or for worse, I'm an authentic wizard. But perhaps we should look up what Obama said here. Obama says Trump deepened U.S. divide in rush to identify enemy after Charlie Kirk shooting. That might not be wrong. He somehow managed to twist the killing to be Trump's fault. Ah, well, I wouldn't be for that. Because here's the thing, like, they've all said some bad things, right? But the problem is no one's side takes accountability. But I mean, I have seen Democrat politicians, they've condemned what's going on. And I've seen a lot of Republican politicians calling for civil war, basically. And then the Fox and Friends people were telling Trump, can you tone down the volume? And they were like, he's like, no, I don't think so. But on a serious note, we are living in very dangerous times. Very dangerous times indeed. Which first part, Alex? And these are the things that I wouldn't be able to talk about on Instagram. Because Instagram, people get too upset too quickly. Same with Facebook too. And the other big news is Jimmy Kimmel basically just got fired. And what he said was conservatives are using Charlie Kirk's death, which I think they probably are. And here's the thing. I don't like Jimmy Kimmel one bit, but I don't think he should have been fired for it. I think, yes, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, but I also think what Trump did was he put pressure on them through the FCC. And Trump was like, well, because Trump is a narcissist. Let's get that out of the way. And he can be sensitive to criticism. And when he hears things he doesn't like, he'll lash out. And that's what he does. And so he told the FCC, you're going to pressure ABC. And you should get rid of him. Similar to what happened to Colbert, too. So again, I think he's like weaponizing the government to shut down speech he doesn't like. I think the antidote to free speech or bad speech is better speech. I'm not for anyone per se being canceled, period, whether it was Shane Gillis or fill in the blank. The first part, the shooter was radicalized by a Democrat university. Yeah, he hated the guy, because here's the two schools of thought on it, right? One school of thought is it's just a leftist person that hated Kirk. That's what it looks like he said himself. Now, Candace Owens is heavily implying that Israel was behind it. Now, I don't think she's said that outright, but she is saying everything but that, because apparently Charlie Kirk was starting to have second thoughts on his support of Israel, and the powers to be didn't like that very much. I agree. I mean, Trump is certainly not a uniting figure, Alex, that's for sure. Obama, here's the thing about him. He was basically like a moderate Republican, for lack of a better word. Obamacare was really Mitt Romney care, for those who don't know. So that was basically a Republican healthcare plan. And you know, the healthcare companies and the insurance companies, they liked it. They liked Obamacare because they were still getting their piece. And for some people, I guess it was better than nothing, but I don't know. But blaming an assassination, other party. You're saying Obama blaming Republicans, you mean? I mean, Obama blaming Republicans, perhaps, but the very first thing Trump did was blame the radical left. So you see how it goes round and round? And I think there's violence on both. They're both doing violence. So Kirk, that was bad. What happened in Minnesota? That was bad. The Horton family, I think was a more right of center person that did that. But you see, what gets focused on is key. And the people who listen to me, you are all uniquely qualified to pull apart the BS you see in the political sphere, because they're using all the tactics that I talk about: lies of omission, half-truths, gaslighting, flipping the script, blame shifting, playing the victim. That's all there. It's all there. And I know, though, if I get very specific, I'd probably get people angry. Now, if I criticize a Republican, Democrats will be angry. If I criticize a Democrat, Democrats will be angry. So, but that's what they're doing. They're all doing it, and it's a mishmash, and I don't like it. Yes, Alex. Dangerous backwards times. If it's ridiculous to kill someone, I absolutely agree. You will not see me celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. But I will say this. So I listened to Charlie Kirk. A lot of people said he was just like a racist person. But and he would question things about affirmative action. To which you say, if it's someone you know is an affirmative action hire, it's okay, I think, to speculate, I wonder if this person was the best person for the job. But that would be considered racist by the left. And he would also talk about gun crimes and etc. And he'd be called racist for that. But the bigger problem I have is that was all a tool. I think it's a tool to recruit people to the conservative side. Because for most people's life, is that impacting their life? No, what does impact their life? The economy impacts their life. How is their health care? How is their taxes? Those are the things that I think are more important. But sometimes people distract from that to get you down another line of thinking. And I think ultimately that's what the elites are doing. The elites are dividing people via the social issues, whether it's guns, LGBTQ, pro-life, pro-choice, fill in the blank with whatever else, the gender war. Though they love those issues. They love those issues because they do a very good job at dividing the people. And it gets them to not unite via class. And take a lower income Black person, middle income Black person. They have way more in common with a lower to middle income white person or Hispanic person than they do with Oprah. Oprah is now an elite. The Democrats have become so intolerant. I mean, they were the original intolerance with cancel culture, yes. Logic stabilizes. If in question, use logic. Correct. Well, what people don't do anymore, they can't talk through the issues because usually the temperature gets turned up too high. And then people don't know how to have a discussion versus an argument. A discussion is to find out what is right. An argument is to find out what is, or who is right. Cat, what's shaken? Charlie Kirk had bad opinions and he never represented Christians. Give an example, Angela, and we'll go over it. Hey, Pat. Abusers love to divide. Yes, they do. Their way or the highway. This is all true. This is all true. Because here's what wizards, by the way, we do not have a political affiliation. I'm not conservative. I'm not progressive. I'm not leftist. I'm not no, maybe that's it. Not Republican, Democrat. I've worked in politics before, but there's some things I agree with on both sides. That's what I'll say. But I'm not going to fall in line on one side or another. That's just not going to be me, because they say when everyone thinks the same, no one's thinking at all. And they say be careful when following the masses, because sometimes the M is silent, if you catch my drift. So it's always good to be questioning. It's good to try to get to the bottom of things. I'm a big advocate of listening to everyone. One of my favorite people to listen to is Dan Carlin. He's a moderate person. But I think in this political climate, people that you can trust, that you know, even if you disagree with them, they're not going to be bad faith. They're not going to lie to you. To me, that is my number one ideal in what I look for. I want someone who's not going to lie, who's not going to twist and distort things. They're going to give their opinion. They're not going to give lies of omission or half-truths. They're going to give it to me how it is. And I might disagree with what they say, but I want to trust that this person isn't trying to propagandize me. That's very important to me in this day and age, because it's so hard to come by. It's so hard to come by. Dan Carlin's one. Sam Harris, I like too, but I think I certainly don't agree with him on everything. I even think Ben Shapiro used to be good at that, but not as much anymore. Who else do I listen to? I listen to Kyle Klinsky on the left. I listen to Dave Smith, the libertarian. And Dave Smith's not bad. I mean, I don't think I disagree with him on some things. And I think sometimes I think he has pandered a couple times, but for the most part, he's genuine, I think. And then I listen to the lefties. I listen to Majority Report, TYT, Secular Talk, and I'll listen to Nick Fuentes. He's the hard right person. You got to listen to everybody. And I could get canceled for saying Nick Fuentes. Angela says, according to Charlie Kirk, his killer had the constitutional right to have a gun because guns save lives. Charlie's friends celebrated when 2 Democrats killed themselves last year. And if they did that, you'd be very correct, Angela. You're correct. And Alex, you're correct too. There's absolutely propaganda on both sides. And you're right, Angela. Like he said, some gun deaths are acceptable in order to keep the Second Amendment. And that he got shot at that precise moment when he was talking about that. I don't think that was a coincidence in any way. So, I mean, I think there's a version of cults on both sides. I lean to the people in the middle that are not part of the cults. Because I think there's a cult on the right and there's a cult on the left. And they both are cultish in different ways and different things, but they're there. I respected a lot of what Charlie Kirk said, but he was antagonistic and would roll his eyes, pout, and show contempt for others, and didn't end well. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying with that, Kat. I think just the fact that they were focusing on those topics that he was focusing on, then he would go to the college campuses and debate. They'll talk about guns, and they would talk about the gender stuff and the LGBTQ stuff. And ultimately, what was Turning Point USA? Turning Point USA is basically a conservative recruitment vehicle. So they talk about issues that they think can pull people to their side. And the biggest gifts for the conservatives is like Leah Thomas, the men and women swimming, or that boxing match that there was a few years ago, or sometimes crime stuff. They talk about that to recruit people. But is it really going to help the lives of the lower income to middle income people? I don't think so. So just to very focus on those things. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be talked about at all. There's a place for that in the public discourse. I just think on the weight, when you weight it out, like what I mean by weigh it on the scales, certain things should take priority over others. And what people choose to focus on says a lot. Let's see here. Oop. Antagonistic politicians use God and religion to get votes. Yes, they do. The killer was a transitioning. Yes, I mean, I'm not sure what he was going to be doing. I don't know. I think he was with a transsexual partner. I do think that. I'm not sure if he was. Face it, no adult in this day and age lacks like a true adult. Well, they say common sense is indeed not common, and it's a superpower now, unfortunately. I didn't know about that, George. I'm a practicing Christian, and I can tell you that Charlie Kirk spoke the gospel truly. God can use that, and I believe he has, because thousands have now heard the gospel. It's for everyone. The gospel is for everyone, whether they accept it or not. Free will. I understand, Melissa. I'm interviewing this woman, Grace, next week, and she's a Christian. And we're going to talk about some of the things that people were ripping her for on Instagram. And I don't even know what she said. I think she just spoke out against the Charlie Kirk murder and said it wasn't good. And that's all it took. People were ripping her a new one on her page. In fact, maybe I'll show you so you can see. But it was out of control. I'm looking for this thing here. Yeah, I mean, just treat all people the right way of humanity. Yeah, I agree that. I think people should be treating others the way they want to be treated. Unfortunately, that's just very rare. It's very rare now. So I'm trying to find this thing here where she gets ripped. And it's possible she might have deleted it because it was just so controversial. Now, here it is. All right, so you ready? I'm going to read this to you here. So this person says to Grace, I'm not even exactly sure what she said, but let's take a look. She goes, Jubilee Dawns says, I would like my episode on your podcast to be taken down immediately. Not only was the video itself shocking, but your replies in the comments have been extremely eye-opening. And again, I'm not sure what her quote-unquote crime was. But what I said to that was, at Jubilee, you see, it's this kind of all or nothing thinking that contributes to the bigger problem. You should be able to disagree with her without demanding your episode being taken down. You now don't want people to hear your story on her platform, even though it will help people who have been abused. ? How selfish is that? I am an independent myself, but to see people treating Grace the way you are is wild. Because it is. So this person disagrees with Grace. Grace is a Christian. This other person's not. And then she demands that the interview be taken down. And like that interview would probably help people who are abused, because that's the thing about this space here, especially on Instagram too. There's a political truce in the narcissistic abuse space. And we talk about what we talk about. I can do this on YouTube, but on Instagram, they would chop my head off if I did. And like, that's the cool part about it though, also, is people can help each other regardless of their political affiliation. And abuse and being a victim of abuse, that transcends political lines. So whether you're a conservative or a progressive, anyone can be a victim of abuse. Anyone can be a flying monkey. Anyone can grow up with a narcissistic parent. And for her to want to take the episode down, to me, that's going too far. Too far. Kat says, I love how narcs think you're controlling, angry, or negative when they don't respect the unspoken rules of a relationship. Correct. Those are all those gaslighting terms. Like, oh, if you have a boundary, you're being controlling. Oh, you don't like something I did, you must be angry or hurt, or you're too sensitive. I joked about you. Oh, or they belittle you and you don't like it. Oh, I was just joking. Yes, projections, George, for sure. No one is perfect, Grace. We all need it. That's why Jesus came. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Is Grace a coach or therapist? Sounds like a good timely topic. She's a coach like me, and I interviewed her probably a little over a year now. And that came up on my Instagram feed, and something told me to click on it, so I did. And I saw those arguments there, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I read it, and there's just a difference of opinion. But people get very tribal. Like that, to me, that's the left's problem with tribalism, is if you don't agree with them 100%, they turn on you. And that is more of a leftist issue in general. The left is known for infighting, and they'll turn on each other. The conservatives, they turn on the other side. But with the leftists, there are a lot of civil wars amongst them, and that's the problem with that. It gets in the way. Emotions are too invested in politics. And I think I'll take it a step further, Melissa. People's identity is too invested in politics. So when your identity is invested in politics, admitting you're wrong is admitting your whole identity could be in jeopardy. And I think that's why it's so rare people do, especially in politics. But I think a very powerful thing to be able to do is to change your mind. And that's something that just doesn't happen very much. People don't change their minds anymore. People are dead set. This is how I think. I'm dead set. Kat says, my ex said to me today, he has thought I'm the only one for him and wants to be friends and see if I blossom into more. Of course, that's a Hoover, Kat. That's a Hoover. He's trying to suck you back in to get you back under his control. And I call that more of a love bombing Hoover, where they'll act all charming and nice to try to get you back. But if you take them back, then it's going to switch. The love bombing will be short, instantly to devalue, and the devalue will be more severe. I can almost guarantee you. Just treat all people the right way with humanity. Correct, Bear. Amen. It's a jolly holiday. Hey there, Jolly. Charlie Kirk pretended to have a perfect life, and he attacked trans homosexuals for not having the perfect life. That's not a Christian at all. I have a feeling, Angela, people might not like that here. I'll say this. The Christian belief will be what a Christian belief is. And I think there's a difference between fundamentalism or orthodox and then the other versions. So some of them are more strict. But me personally, like, I don't have a problem with gay people. Like, I think gay people are probably born that way. Friends after sex is a no-go. I find Americans are hardcore into politics. It's obviously crucial, but it's very hostile and divided, and 1000% it is. Because, Kat, you are in England? I just have a friend I met on Instagram from England. No, Wales. But she lives in the Middle East. And she was telling me all of the riots that there are in England right now. And it's over immigration. And what she was saying to me was there's a lot of drunk people in the streets ranting and raving about people that look differently than them. I'll tell you what, we're living in a very unique time, and it's not just America. This is all over the world that the temperature has been really turned up, and it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary if you ask me. Hoover. Yes, got to watch out those Hoovers, Bear. They happen. And but the key would be if you make them wait or you refuse to Hoover, watch how they respond then. Then you'll see the real them come back and they'll be mad. That happened to me with a family member once. They'd be nice. Oh, unblock me, unblock me, unblock me. And I didn't. And then some time passed, 6 months. And then all of a sudden they were ranting and raving on my social media pages, telling me how terrible I was, trying to ridicule me, make me look ridiculous. And I was like, oh, see, this is why I didn't unblock you, because I know you didn't change. This is just who you are. And you can pretend to be nice for a little bit, but you can't really be that. And there's a lot of people, especially from our past, they want to see us as the version of ourselves they had the most power over. Melissa says it's a leftist issue. Conservatives are kind of going that way. Going what way? I'm a real Christian, and we don't have any problem with homosexuals or the Democrats at all. I get you, Angela. I don't have a problem with the gays either. Yes, I'm English. What part of England? London? In the west side or east side of London? Have you ever been to Land's End? I've been to Land's End. Yes, I'm English. Oh, that's so true, Jared. What did I say that was so true? Kat, my grandfather was English. And yes, Kat, don't waste your time and emotions like that. Yes. The radical self-respect way. Brighton, the south coast of England. So that is closer to Land's End. It's closer to Land's End. You'd cross the ferry, across the channel. Christian beliefs he had, but did he attack anyone? Yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk did not deserve to die. Let's get that out of the way. Like, he might have been a little bit antagonistic in some of his beliefs, but that's not worth being shot. That's not that. And granted, like, my bigger issue with Charlie Kirk would be just the things he was choosing to focus on. There's other things to focus on as well. Not saying that no one should ever talk about those things, because I live close to Philadelphia. Violence is a big thing in Philadelphia. Same with Chicago. So those things should be talked about. That's a big thing. I mean, and my thoughts always with the Second Amendment have been, Kat, she's told me what happened in England, but I think in America, there's so many guns that if they were to go away, the only people who are going to have them are the criminals. Like, there's so many guns in this country. Now, there's a different debate about what you feel about automatic rifles or assault guns or whatever. But for just handguns for protection, I don't have a problem with that. No one should be shot. The next shut up. True. I think so too, Kat. Thank you. No, it's interesting, though, because Kat was saying how in England they shut it down. They shut down guns. So what does that even mean, though, Kat? Does that mean no one has firearms there? Or they're just like very strict rules about them? Because I think it's not that people don't have them. It's just there's very strict rules. And I don't think any automatic weapons are available, if I had to guess. Charlie Kirk's attacked the Democrats with other influencers. He used Christianity in a bad way. Well, that can be your thoughts on the matter for sure. And I think here's what, because Angela, he was first and foremost, I think he was, when you see him talking, he's talking for Turning Point USA. And what are they doing? They're a conservative group. So I think he might have used Christianity in some cases. But I do think for himself, he was also a Christian for himself. It seemed like his family had faith too. And I'm sure his wife right now needs it after dealing with that. Because it is pretty heartbreaking when you have your 3-year-old daughter asking you, hey, when's dad going to come home? Because they just don't know. That's got to tear your heart into a million pieces hearing that. So, and I think she told him that he was doing something with Jesus or something like that to pay for something. George, my ex, is American. He was on a good path with my influence, but went to Michigan and his ego, drugs, and the women won out when playing his gigs up there. Oh, so he was a musician. Reminds me of a Halsey song, Kat. And no money, drugs, or cars are going to fill that hole in your soul, that hole in your heart. Their identity and attacking people, it's a leftist thing. They attack if there is a disagreement. There are some that do that, Melissa. You're not wrong. But I would also argue some conservatives do it too, like the Minnesota shootings as well. Charlie Kirk represented a political party, but wasn't a real Christian like me. We don't, without the true Scotsman thing, eh? And I agree. I mean, ultimately, I agree that I don't think it should be about hate. Long distance made it complicated and easier for him to slip up and hurt me. Well, let me stop you there with that, Kat. I wouldn't necessarily call it a slip up if he cheated. That's more like he did what he wanted to do. He wanted to cheat, and he phrased it that way. Christian values were attacked by a freak. Yeah. Long distance, I would not call it antagonist. Yeah, because I think for people that definitely would agree, they wouldn't see it that way for sure. I think the fact that he was talking about those issues when there's other things to talk about as well, to me, that's the part I think people didn't like. Charlie spoke truth. It was an inside job. What do you think it was, Israel? Or someone else? Mossad, CIA, FBI? Or is it just a leftist? I don't know. I don't claim to know the answers here. If I'm going to be a journalist, I want to make sure I have all the facts before I start spouting out at the mouth. We Christians don't think that homosexuals or trans are freak. It's understandable. Your ex came to the city, a big playground, like a kid in a candy shop, especially as a musician. Yeah. So they go to the bars. They're probably getting free drinks at the bar. There's some women up there dancing, and a lot of women love the music at the bar, and they get attracted to the guys in the band. And then one thing leads to another, and boop, there can be a slip up. But I wouldn't call it a slip up. It was more like he was open to doing it. And I don't mean to sound callous when I say that or empathyless, but yes, he cheated with women at his gigs, and now he wants his freedom, but won't let me go. I said he's Peter Pan, and I'm Wendy, and I'm not an option. Drake would like that too. I'm more than just an option. Hey, hey, hey. Christianity is an identity and a worldview. True. I agree with that. Homosexuals and trans deserve respect. See, here's the thing. I've had friends that were transsexuals from when I was a taxi cab driver, and I would talk to them. I would talk to them about, like, hey, what's the difference between you and a gay or a lesbian person? And they were truly just convinced. They were convinced that they were just in the wrong body. A lot of them were they were transsexual prostitutes. And then I would ask them, who are your clients? And know who they said their clients were? Married men. Married men, because these were the people that were born men and transitioned to women. And it's super confusing because they have boobs. A lot of them have boobs. Like, as a guy, you're trained to think, oh, you see boobs, it's a woman. Well, not in this day and age. Not in this day and age, not necessarily. But it's the married men that like them most of all. What did Angela say? I got a lot of stories from being a taxi driver, Bear. I did it for Uber and Lyft too, but it was more exciting before Uber and Lyft came around. I have some wild stories from that, I'll tell you. You wouldn't even believe it if I told you. God does love everybody, Angela. Not everyone accepts him as Father and Lord, so not everyone is his child. Well, that's true. Because, I mean, if you talk to someone that's a Muslim, they're not. You talk to someone that's a Jew and practices Judaism, they're not. Yes, very much. Yes. Stay away. I don't know if Charlie Kirk was judging. I would say he was perhaps strongly disagreeing with the way they lived their life, I would say. And if you want to call that judging, perhaps. But Charlie Kirk is friends with Dave Rubin. I mean, Dave Rubin's a gay man. Oh, well. They were fun times. They were fun times. The wildest stories are inappropriate. Very inappropriate, we'll say. We'll put you like this. It was almost like my life was, on one night, was a porno, for lack of a better word. But there's all different kinds of crazy. Like, I got punched doing the job. There was times where I talked to people that were prostitutes, transsexual prostitutes, a lot of strippers, people just released from jail, violent people. I had some very interesting conversations. Remember that show, Taxi Cab Confessions? That was my job. I haven't been on Instagram for years. Sometimes I think about joining again, but I worry it will be a distraction. Well, I'll put it to you like this. It would certainly be one more distraction. How much of a distraction, that depends, but it won't not be a distraction. Let's put it like that. I was a bartender for 15 years, Alex says. Crazy stories too. Oh, for sure. For sure. Very equivalent to mine, I'm sure. Because I mean, I also worked as a bouncer in places too. But when people get lubed up with the drinking, then all of a sudden the truth comes out. And a lot of it depends on the bar you're in, because there's different kinds of bars. I'm more of a hole in the wall bar type guy. I'm not more the extremely loud and the dance bar. That's a different experience. But the hole in the wall bar, that's always been my kind, as an old soul type. And those are the places where you'll really hear the stories, because people can actually talk. There's other places that are more oriented towards dancing or whatever. Not the same. Not the same. That's more of the pickup bars where people are just trying to, and granted, that happens at the mom and pop bars too, but it's just different. All humans are God's children. Mentally sick people like narcissists are possessed by demons, but God loves many homosexuals and trans who have a good heart. I'm pretty sure, that's how God would probably see it. I think my only thing with trans is basically saying that God made a mistake. And I wonder how that would go over. Because if you think you were born in the wrong body, that doesn't mean the person deserves hate. But to completely switch. Now, granted, I mean, and you could argue, where is the line with that? Is wearing makeup saying God made a mistake? Is getting plastic surgery saying God made a mistake? I don't know. I'm just talking out loud here. I don't know the answers. Me too, Alex, and even in a male gay bar once. I used to go to the gay bars back when I used to go to bars, because that's where women would be easier to talk to. Because in a straight bar, they have their guards up. But in a gay bar, they're much more friendly. Ethel, how are you? I think Charlie Kirk was stating his opinions in disagreement. No. I mean, he can say what he wants, Melissa. That's what I would say. Free speech. I'm for free speech across the board. I'm not for cancel culture on the left or cancel culture on the right. Charlie Kirk and his friends were always attacking homosexuals if they were perfect. What exactly did he say about them, though? People are too easily offended these days. There's a lot of that going on. But a lot of it really is, if you don't agree with someone, then you're way more likely to be offended. But if you agree with them, oh, no, so that's fine. That's fine. I agree with them. Because most people in politics, they just want to hear their own opinion in someone else's voice. Yep, there are gay and trans conservatives. Yes, there are. Charlie Kirk has said that before. True. True, true, true. I'm for free speech, but not hate speech. And then I guess it would just be defining what hate speech is, right? Because the devil's in the details, as Jordan Peterson would say. And what's the definition of it? And the gay bars. Gay bars usually are more wild because here's the thing. In a straight dating world, women kind of keep men in line a little bit. Like they control things in a way. But in the gay culture, there's just none of that. They're just all guys that want the same things. So there's no natural guardrails. Like women are kind of a natural guardrail in the traditional dating world. But when it's just men, guys, people end up shirtless, grinding all sorts of things. But like, they never gave me a hard time. Some of my straight friends would say, oh, I hate coming here because they're going to try to make a move on me or I'm uncomfortable. It's like, nah, like that never happened to me. Like one time a guy did try to kiss me once and I had to do the old head turn. I felt like a woman, but that was just one time. Other than that, it was just a fun place. LOL, inappropriate war porno. Yes, taxi. Yes. Well, because there was 3 women that came into to the cab once, and they were drinking, of course, and they were just rambunctious from the start. And 2 of them were married, I later found out. And it's one of the many things that's made me cynical because you see there's so many people, men and women both. I used to be one of the people that thought, oh, women don't do those kind of things. It's just so rare. No, not really. Women do. Men do, and women do. And they were just, it turned into a wild car ride. Last year, I had many conversations with conservative influencers similar to Charlie Kirk, and all of them hated them. So I wouldn't be a fan of that. Hating for no reason. What would they say to Charlie or to Dave Rubin? That wouldn't be very good. A lot of wild times out there in the world. I miss those days, but Uber and Lyft killed those days because now Uber and Lyft, they pay their drivers 1/10 of what taxi drivers used to make. So now taxi driving used to be a career for people. Not anymore. There is nobody making a career out of taxi now. Or if they do, it's many fewer people, and no one's making a career out of Uber and Lyft either. Uber and Lyft is really just a part-time job. It's basically for kids or retired people. And not only that, you're killing your own car. When I was driving a taxi, I wasn't driving my car. I was driving another car. I'm not trying to hate anyone. It's not good for your soul. The trains are whacked. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, I mean, gay people are different than trans for sure. Yeah, I went to gay bars with my guy friends. That's smart, Jared. Yeah. So women have their guards down there. And they're just easier to talk to. They're more open to being spoken to. And I had some good connections there. My ex is very anti-trans. He's not nice at all, but he admitted to me in his past he got a sexual favor from a woman who used to be a man. Aha! Did he get tricked or something? That's interesting. Well, a lot of people that really hate on him, sometimes they have that they're covering up for something a lot of times. Not all the time, but sometimes. Those fake conservative influencers are always saying that homosexuals are evil and all of them grape and they are wrong. I mean, who says that though? People say that on X. I could see that on X, but they wouldn't be able to get away with that on YouTube. Not at all. You would get demonetized on YouTube for that. They really do have the guards down at the gay bars. Just more so than a straight bar. I mean, understandably so. A straight bar, women do have to be on their guard. They got to watch out for dudes slipping things in their drinks. That is actually the worst thing that happened to me at a gay bar. I left my beer unattended and someone put something in it. That's the worst thing that ever happened to me there. Because as a guy, you're not used to having to think about guarding your drink, right? Women do, unfortunately. But as a guy, I didn't think about it. But I thought about it after that. No, he knew she was trans and has had moments with gay men, but claims to be straight and alpha male. I'm always a little weary of the guys who consider themselves alpha males. It always reminds me of Tywin Lannister when Joffrey Lannister said, "I am the king." And then Tywin shuts him down and says, "Any man who has to say, 'I am the king,' is no true king." And I remember that whenever someone says they're an alpha male. Anyone who has to say they're an alpha male is no alpha male. A real alpha male is going to let their actions do the talking. It just comes off as cringe to me. And also musicians, Kat, they are very open generally. Open with sexuality, open with drugs. It just comes with the territory. You should talk to these fake conservatives influencers almost every day. Block them because they only worship Trump like Charlie Kirk. Where were they, Angela? X or somewhere else? Instagram? Well, because right now there's a lot of money to be made online telling people what they want to hear. That's the thing for sure. Hello, cute. I mean, if you're a guy and you go to a gay bar, you are kind of like, you got to think of yourself as if you were a woman going to a straight bar because people are after you. And that wasn't something I was used to. Yes, musicians are definitely very egotistical. Sucks because music is my love language. Music is my love language too, Kat. There's nothing more powerful than sharing music with somebody. It's almost like you're sharing a part of your soul. Here you go. Here's like a YouTube video of the music I like. One of the most powerful things to do, in my opinion. Do you think men are more cynical than men? Do you mean men more cynical than women? Or women more cynical than men? Do you think men are more cynical than women? I mean, I think there's a fair amount of cynicism from both. I see a lot of cynical women, and I see a lot of cynical men. X, that makes sense. I mean, X is a wild place. There's Nazis, maybe not as many communists anymore. Communists probably went to blue sky. But there's legit Nazis, and there's legit all sorts of stuff. It's a wild place. It's a wild place. And the discourse is all over the place. But I mean, I see black-pilled men that are cynical. And I see a lot of women that are cynical. And they'll say, none of the men are doing the work. And the black-pilled men will say, all women are the same. They only want the Chads and Tyrones. And to me, that's where the pandering comes in. There's black-pilled creators. They pander to the men and just feed them the negativity. And they get paid for doing it. And there's the opposite would be the women, the people that pander to women, the people like Chris Perry or Matthew Coast or Derek Jackson. They just tell women what they want to hear. You're perfect the way you are, and the problem is only men. And that's it. And they can make a small fortune doing that. I miss the days before the internet. I feel like the world was happier. It was, Kat. Now, that doesn't mean there was no problems, but I think it was a little more magical back then. Now, granted, though, I think what also happens with social media now, we take for granted all of the good things. I wouldn't be talking to you all right now without social media. Right? So we have things that are good, and being able to look up things right away, learn about narcissistic abuse, connect with people all over the world. Those are all things that didn't happen before, but now happen. But there's also a big pile of not so good, knowing, and Christian and I talked about this in our interview. Now you know what everyone believes. You know what everyone's political thoughts are that share. You know what they've eaten for breakfast and lunch. You know everything about them. And then before, you had to meet people in person to make connections. Now, you slide into someone's DMs, and that's it. Cat Wild says Derek Jackson, or however you spell his name, is a fraud and a cheat. Treated his poor wife like dirt. And that doesn't surprise me one bit, Kat, because to me, they're just fraudulent. And here's the thing, not everything they say is wrong. I'll listen to Chris Perry. I follow him on Facebook. Matthew Coast. They're not wrong about everything, but they're being subtly antagonistic towards men, and and they're not really even helping women. All they're doing is just giving them endless validation. And I would just feel so inauthentic doing that. Like, I have to give you it all. I can't just do the one. I have to be me. And maybe you could say that's me being selfish, maybe. But it doesn't surprise me that they have that shadow side where they be the ones that cheat. Doesn't surprise me one bit. I talked to influencers who knew Trump in person and people who had a friendship with Charlie Kirk's friends. They all did. I mean, I'm not surprised per se. I'm not saying they don't exist, but although nowadays people are getting more bold. I've been seeing people get more bold in terms of racism. I have been seeing that. I've been seeing people telling all Black people to go back to Africa, for example. And that's something that people used to not say, but now I'm seeing it. I saw it on Instagram. I see it in some Facebook comment sections. Of course, you see it on X too. And it's wild. It's wild times. It's wild how far things are going. Troubling, we'll say. Troubling times. Because I don't know. I think we're kind of at a tipping point right now. Christian said he thinks we're in the dark ages right now. To which I think he might be right. Oh, music shares where it's at, Bear. Because I listen to anything. In a car ride with me, you can listen to Pink Floyd, Sublime, Slightly Stupid, the Rolling Stones, Halsey, Elton John, Billy Joel. Who else? Kate Bush, Little John, Drake, Linkin Park, The Neighborhood. There's no limit. I understand that, Angela. I understand. Yeah, they make people a fortune saying that people want to hear. Correct. It's like I said, so many people just want to hear validation, and they want to hear their own opinion in someone else's voice. And those guys that pander to women, what concerns me about it is the women that don't seem to see it. It's like, don't you know this guy is just manipulating you for attention, likes, views, and money? That's all it is. Because it's just so, to me, it just is so inauthentic. And that's the part I struggle with. Me too, Kat. I love my classic rock, Floyd, Stones, Black Sabbath, Neil Young, Bowie, Fleetwood Mac. The 60s and 70s are my jam. They're my jam too. I love them. Like Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, and Animals too. I like the Stones, some Leonard Skinner, Fleetwood Mac, some Ground Control to Major Tom. The original music battle between Neil Young and Leonard Skinner. Because in Southern Man by Leonard Skinner, Ronnie Van Zant calls out Neil Young. And I wish Neil Young would remember. Very well, what does he say? Did your conscience bother you? Oh, Neil Young's Southern Man was a rip of the South. So there was like back in the 70s rap battle in classic rock form. But I love all that. Led Zeppelin. What else did I love? A little bit of the Beatles. Magical era, we'll say. And I like the 80s. I like Def Leppard. I liked some of the True Faith stuff, the pop, 80s pop, The Cure. Like I said, I can listen to almost anything. The only music I don't really seek out is country music. That's pretty much it. I can listen to jazz, but everything else I can listen to. I just don't seek out much country. Oh, you did? That must have been something, because they don't go live anymore, do they? I remember there was a time they went live after a long hiatus in 1980. That was wild. He was great live. When they sing Since I've Been Loving You and Stairway to Heaven. Jefferson Airplane, When the Truth is Found to Be Lies. I love that song. And I love how they use it in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Because there's White Rabbit, Somebody to Love. Those are the two big ones, right? What a magical era that was. I think 68 to like 74 was a very magical era. Maybe putting in 75, because that's when Wish You Were Here came out. And then the 80s, like late 80s to early 90s, was another magical era with all the grunge bands, Soundgarden, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots. Awesome. Oh, Robert Plant solo. He was still amazing. I saw Prince live in London too. Prince was super talented. Jefferson Airplane. I love those Jefferson Airplanes. Prince, he learned guitar, and Cat Williams would talk about it, but he learned guitar, and then black people stopped liking guitar. And so then he had to adapt. He had to adapt to other things. But he was a super talented person. He has some great guitar solos when he was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They did While My Guitar Gently Weeps when, I guess it was for George Harrison's funeral, maybe, or the induction ceremony. But he did a great rendition of that. And then he does another great guitar solo in a cover of Creep, of Radiohead's Creep. That's a great one. That's the plan here, Alex. I'm in the mood to listen to some too, for that matter. Now I want to listen to music again. Yes. That was with Tom Petty, Prince, George Harrison's son. Who was the guy's name with the hat who was singing? Jeff something or other? I can't remember. Tom Petty was a classic with Breakdown. Breakdown. Go ahead, give it to me. Let's see. He had a sing-along song once with that. I would say, I was telling my friend the other day, music, art, and movies, they can help heal people in a way that nothing else can. It's not going to be the same as coaching or therapy or counseling or psychiatry. Music, it touches a part of the soul that nothing else can. And the same thing with connection too. That's why there's so many aspects to healing, because there's community, your personal relationships, your hobbies, your career, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. It all contributes. So to try to address just one thing, oh, why are you depressed? There's so many things that go into that. Oh, are you being abused? Did you grow up in a dysfunctional family? Are you surrounded by crappy people? Are you having a hormonal imbalance? Are you miserable at your job? Are you a slug that's not working out ever? Are you never hitting the gym? Are you drinking a lot? Like, what is it? There's so many things it could be. I think a 12-step. Jennifer, how are you? I think a 12-step program really can help with self. I totally agree with that. I think everyone should write on the 12 steps. It doesn't even have to be for an addiction. You can fill in the blank with whatever quote unquote bad habit you have. But I think the self awareness people would get from that is amazing. Oh, Smashing Pumpkins, Bill Burr's twin. Nothing like they'll say your sense of smell and music is very similar to a time machine. When I hear the beginning of Smashing Pumpkins 1979, that transports me back to 1995 or 6 or whenever the hell that song came out. Just like a time machine. Ram Jam, Black Betty. Bow, bow. That's from Blow. Johnny Depp, Blow, part of the soundtrack of that. But learning about yourself, the 12 steps is a great way to do that. You learn about your patterns. You learn about your defects. You learn about your shortcomings. You learn about how you relate to other people. I learned so much about myself from doing that. I wouldn't be the same if I didn't. It kind of blessed me with self-awareness because before that, I don't think I had any. I was ignorant as can be. Angela says, as a millennial, I like music of the 90s. Korn, I like Korn. Freak on a Leash. Freak on a Leash and Got the Life. And what's the other one I like? Coming Undone. That's the other one I like by Korn. But I also like Nirvana and Metallica. All of that. I love all of that. Smashing Pumpkins had one song. I don't remember many songs. I like 1979, Rat in a Cage, Zero. Those are the 3 ones I know from them. But they were a classic 90s band. They were right there with Sublime and Soundgarden and Tonic, Soul Asylum with Runaway Train. What else? Oh, is he really now? I think I saw that, Angela. He was talking about that in a YouTube short. He said he had everything, right? The money, the women, and he was miserable. And then I think he converted. So you're right. You're definitely right about that. But the music, magical. And that's the thing now, right? I think that's one thing that's missing today. Like, what music is really popular today? Not much, if you ask me. I think that's one of the things that defined the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, even into the early 2000s. There was all sorts of music that defined the era. What music defines 2025? Nothing. Nothing defines 2025. Or maybe I've just gotten old and I don't see it anymore. Yeah, he's great, Angela. I agree. I definitely agree. And I love those bands too, but I've always felt the British make the best music. The Who and Zeppelin and Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac was American though, right? Who else is in England? Depeche Mode. I like Depeche Mode too, by the way. That's more of the 80s into early 90s version. The Cure. The Cure is Britain, I think, too, right? And he had a good life, Robert. Robert from The Cure. He's been married to the same woman for decades. He wrote that song called Love Song to her, which is pretty cool. Oh, You're My Wonderwall, an Oasis. And Don't Look Back in Anger, I heard you say. Fleetwood Mac. Oh, Fleetwood Mac was British, huh? I didn't know that. Then American Stevie Nicks. Oh, okay. That's what confused me because I didn't think Stevie Nicks was British. Cure's good. I like Lullaby, Love Song, Just Like Heaven. What else? There's a bunch of songs that were pretty great that they made. Oasis was another one of my first CDs. Offspring and Oasis, I think, were some of my first CDs I got. And remember that? Remember CDs when they were a thing? There's no equivalent to CDs now. What do people do? They download it from Spotify? or they find it on YouTube. What? It's not even close to the same. But there used to be a whole ritual around buying CDs or buying DVDs. I like Madonna too. I just listened to Live to Tell again today because that was the sound in the soundtrack for that Sean Penn and Christopher Walken movie. And Sean Penn married Madonna. So imagine that. Your husband is starring in that movie, and then your wife wins a Grammy or Emmy, whichever one it is, for making that song for the movie. Elton. I like Elton too. With Daniel and Candle in the Wind and Levon. Levon liked his money. First song I ever bought was Everybody Hurts by R.E.M. I like a song. And Losing My Religion. That's probably their most popular song, Losing My Religion. Or Live, Lightning Crashes. Like I said, to me, like I said, maybe I'm just getting old, and maybe part of that just reminds me of nostalgia. But it seems like the songs were better made back then. 60s through 90s. Yes, it is, Angela. And I do think this is where it is true. Back then, there was no social media distractions. Like when you were doing something, you were much more present. Nowadays, everyone has their phone right here. There's a distraction right around the corner. And I think it does get in the way. I think it does get in the way of people really diving into their passions. I think it does. And I think now, like back in the day, someone would learn guitar and their attention would be more focused on learning guitar. But nowadays, someone learns guitar, they would be picking up their phone every 10 minutes and then scrolling for a little while. And that's the other thing with the phone. I think it ruins your attention. So now it's harder to focus on things for longer because you got this compulsion to pick up your phone. Linkin Park was a good band. I like Linkin Park. That one song, Numb, always reminds me of Narcissistic Parents, Angela. Because the lyrics were, every step that I take is another mistake to you. And can't you see that you're smothering me, holding too tightly, afraid to lose control? What does that sound like? It sounds just like a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic romantic partner. Social media also ruins relationships. I think what it is social media gives people the opportunity. Right? And if someone's willing and wanting to do it, social media bridges that gap for them. But the individual is still to blame. Yes. Yes, correct. Yes, Jared. I'll have to check that song out, George. Just like that other song you had me check out. I've never heard of that one. Love Spent. I don't know that much of Madonna's catalog. But occasionally my YouTube will put her on in my music. And he had said, or that song Like a Prayer, that was so controversial when it came out in 1987. But there's a line in that song that always has stood out to me. It's like a dream, no end and no beginning. And that's one of those things that's always stood out. Oh, yeah. Like a dream, no end or no beginning. It really is. Eckhart Tolle agrees. And the power of now? Absolutely. Yeah. Gabriel, how are you? I'm 40. 40 years old. Born in 1985. Also, I was thinking, chat, that I might try to invite some guests to join me on these live streams occasionally. Not like a formal interview where we're just talking back and forth, but more like a conversational thing like this, where we just talk. So my friend Kelly, maybe, or CC, or from Vibin with CC, or Marcella from Beyond the Brews, or Christian even. Although I don't know if Christian's the best candidate for that, because he just goes, which is fine. He's better for an interview, I feel like. My favorite Linkin Park song is Somewhere I Belong. I know it because I think that's everyone needs to find a real home. Just like in the Disney movie Hercules, I'm 41. My ex said if I don't marry and have a baby with him, I'll end up alone with cats. Huh. Sounds like he's trying to manipulate you using fear. Now, granted, like at 41, it is running out of time, but people can have pregnancies into the mid-40s, but it depends even if you want one. Also, it's a big thing having a kid with the wrong person. I'll say that too. That's actually one of the things I disagreed with Charlie Kirk on. And before he died, I wrote this down and I said, he had said, get married young and have kids you can't afford. And I was like, what? To me, that's terrible advice. And to me, what it is it gets people trapped. If you have kids you can't afford, now you're stuck being a slave for some corporate master. And perhaps that's what some people want you to do. They want you to be stuck, not being able to actualize and have more ambition, because now you're forced to take care of a family. So I didn't like that at all. And I wrote that down. I'm an old soul. Oh, I'm an old woman. I'm proud of it. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I agree, Alex. I didn't like it either. I actually wrote it down. I wrote it down to call it out, but he passed away before I had a chance. CC, yeah, she'd be a good candidate for this if she's down for it. Same with my friend Kelly. But that's the important part then, Kat. Gabriel says, I found Charlie Kirk to have extremely simplistic views. I found it odd how many people thought him brilliant for saying such simplistic things. To me, there was some pandering going on with him, I would say. His motive was recruiting conservatives. That was it. And when you keep that in mind, it's important to understand people's motives. That was ultimately his motive. He might pretend it wasn't, but that was his motive. CC, she'll come back on. I think the last time I spoke to CC, she was just experiencing a breakup. So I think she was a little more subdued, which is fine. I'm not criticizing her in any way. She's the kind of girl that I wouldn't be able to criticize at all. There's something about her energy that, like, I would just never want to say something bad about her. There's some people like that where just the way they show up, it makes people want to be the best version of themselves and like really do better. And she's one of those people to me where you're like, you know what? Could you imagine somebody being mean to Cece? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't imagine it. I'm sure it's happened, but I wouldn't want to be it. I wouldn't be that person. But I think like maybe once a month, and have a few people I come on with once a month or something. Because I basically talk to Dr. Salerno once a month. I wouldn't mind talking to Christian once a month. CC once a month. My friend Kelly once a month. I talk to Kelly all the time. And then Marcella, I don't talk to her all the time, but we talk. Authentic. I hope she finds a person. I hope so too, Alex. She deserves it. She's not far from me. I'm glad you do, George. So Charlie who had a fake self? I'm trying to say nada, because didn't know that whole whirl. Focus on God and he will send you kids at the right age and time. I do believe that, Angela. I do believe that. My ex can't even deal with his nonverbal autistic child, so I wouldn't have had a child with him unless he started his BS out. That's smart. That's smart. Mrs. B. Stacy, how are you? Having children young forced me to grow up quickly. I felt blessed to be a parent and worked my booty off to take care of them. I would like to see others have that same experience. I have no regret. Now, I can totally see this. Once it happens, by all means, make the best of it, right? Like you did it, and now looking back, you can see the benefits of it. Oh yes, well, this was helped. And most people don't regret having their children. Or And even if they did, they're probably not going to say it. But I guess I've had the thought also of you want to be in a good place for them, because it's getting hard. It's getting hard financially to take care of kids. It's not like how it used to be. It's getting harder and harder. You might try inviting subs in, Jared. What does that mean? Subs what? Inviting subs. As in, my ex sorted himself out, his lovely child. I agree. Bear says, CC is brilliant. I loved your interview with her. I've interviewed her twice now. Bear. Kelly is Kelly Conrad. I've talked to her several times. She's under the live tab. I've talked to her. But Ellie, what did you mean by that? You might try inviting subs in, Jared, as in like a substitute person or something else. She's Tinker Kelly on TikTok, Bear. She's coming up on 100,000. Oh, okay. Subscribers, you mean? Okay. That's a good idea too, for people who are down, because some people I know they don't want to be public, but for people who are interested, for sure. And what I could also do is, while this is happening, I could send out the link to certain people at certain times and they can join. That's what a lot of streamers do. George says, I don't consider autism bad genes. I'm autistic, Cat, so I would agree with that. I think George would say bad genes for a different reason. I think because of the character. But even then, bad genes maybe wouldn't be the best way to say it. But I'll say this, as someone who's been on the spectrum, I had to get into a good place with my consciousness, because when I had lots of anxiety, it was just tough. It was tough to really enjoy life. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And that struggle, there's value in the struggle, but there's a lot of pain in the struggle too. And, if you give a choice, a parent probably wouldn't wish that on their kids. But at the same time, the calm sea never made a skilled sailor. And if someone's meant for big things or great things, they're probably not going to have an easy life. And that's why John Steinbeck said in East of Eden, the father was debating on whether he wanted his son to choose greatness or not. And he said, I want my son to actually choose greatness. He said, can you believe it? Dooming my son to greatness. Because his other children were just average. But I loved the way he phrased that. How did you find out you're autistic? Well, never being able to look people in the eye, my severe anxiety. What else? Having people tell me years ago, like before I got a diagnosis, people thought, because I was always just different as well. It was different than people can think, because people aren't going to think it now because I show up differently, but it's because I have a supplement routine now where it kind of masks some of those symptoms in a way. But I used to self-medicate with heroin, and because when I wasn't on like an opiate or booze, I just couldn't be confident. I couldn't speak clearly a lot of times. It was awful. So there's a lot of reasons. I've actually gone over some of it in other videos. Now, I don't think I'm a severe version, in between moderate to less severe, and it would be Asperger's. And back in the day, I thought, no, there's no way I'm that. No way. But now that I can see it and I've read through it all, I was like, oh, well, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. And granted, though, Elon Musk definitely is. Elon Musk kind of proves that you can be autistic with a little bit narcissistic too, by the way. And so, but now that I'm in a good place with it too, it doesn't seem like a bad thing. But when I wasn't in a good place, it was, ooh. Many are, George, but I wouldn't say all. I think it shows up differently for everyone, and different people are going to have different talents and gifts. I've had to learn how to harness it. And don't get me wrong, it took me a long time to harness it. Because even like smoking weed, I would get like super, super bad anxiety. No, there's a lot of parts of my story I don't always tell because that was 20 years ago now. But that was a part of the story. Like me being not on my supplement routine. Which parts of them? The not being able to look people in the eye, slurring my words, not fitting in with anybody, and then getting bullied, and then not having the assertiveness to say anything. What else? Hyper focusing on one thing at a time, just being able to watch the Daytona 500 for 5 hours when I'm 5 years old. What else? Not being able to shift my focus from one thing to the next, being stuck on one. I don't believe everyone's on the spectrum in a way, just like I don't believe everyone is on the spectrum of narcissism. But also, the worst parts of it were the anxiety and the socially uncalibratedness. So not being able to, just not being able to speak. Oh, there's tons of supplements. But I wasn't socially calibrated, and I was extremely socially awkward. And there was reasons for that. The anxiety got in the way, so I wasn't able to just speak. But now with the supplements I take things like SAMe, a probiotic, NAC. So ADHD is a little different in the fact that you can say it's a form of neurodivergence, but a much different variety. Autism has to do with the GABA system in the brain, which makes sense for me considering why I had so much anxiety. It's a different form of functioning. ADHD, that's more involved with dopamine. And that's why it involves focus. And that's why they give people Adderall, Vyvanse, or Ritalin. Now, it's all good. It's all been part of my story. And I wouldn't be who I am without that stuff. So, sure, it was very painful at the time. And I wouldn't wish it on people, but I'm glad I went through what I did. Because now I have a very unique experience to share with people now. I have legit experience with a lot of things that a lot of people just can't say they do. So whether it's addiction, narcissistic relationships, borderline relationships, being on the spectrum, abuse, bullying, politics even, I know all about all this. Being selective in particular with food can be a symptom of autism too. Yeah, one of my ex-girlfriends used to say I had almost an eating disorder, but it's just very sensitive. It was very sensitive. So whatever I ate, I was very sensitive to it. Gabriel says, I think my dad is autistic. Any book on adult children of autistic parents? That's very similar to my story, Gabriel, because looking back on it, it's hard to tell whether my dad was autistic or narcissistic, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit of both. But even for me, it's hard to tell. And they would just say some very callous things. They would say things that would make no sense. And looking back at it now from what I know now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. My dad said that? What? Who says that? But they say things that are just out of control. Very hurtful things too, by the way. And that's why it's hard to tell. It's are they doing that from a place of autism, or are they doing that from a place of more narcissism? Honestly, it doesn't really matter, but because the damage is the damage. I kind of think with my dad, it was a little bit of both, but it is what it is. My dad was definitely autistic, hence why my brother is. It's mainly genetic. Yes, I agree with that. And I don't think it's a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that so many autistic people wind up in a relationship with a narcissist. Partially because one of their parents can be, but partially because I think narcissistic people are drawn to autistic people. There's something about them that they're drawn to. And now that I mention it, anyone who was here for my live the other night, I was talking about that coaching, potential coaching client. And that's something that person said to me. I think they're a little bit narcissistic, but they said, I was drawn to you. It's like, huh, you were drawn to me. And part of that could have just been a manipulation too, but a lot of people that are narcissistic, they're drawn to the autistic people. They want to say anyway, my dad too. Yeah, my ASD NOD said things to me that I couldn't imagine saying to my cat. Yeah, of course. NPD, yeah. So any literature on adult children of autistic parents that you know of? I know there's a book called The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I think you'll relate to that one. That's a good book because it's similar. It's very similar. Narcissists keep their cards close to the chest often, unless they're trying to disarm you by being open or quote unquote open. I also find those in the spectrum are drawn to each other without even knowing they're on the spectrum. You just know. I've heard many people say that to me, Kat. So I agree with you. They say there's just something that they feel safe with them. And I've seen that. Yes, autistic people are vulnerable to narcissists. Absolutely. Oh, you did read that one? The Old Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. What's another one? Maybe Adult Children of Alcoholics would be similar. I think that's another book. In terms of specifically autistic parents, that's a tough one because the way people see autism now, it's so different. Like up until not that long ago, people thought you weren't autistic unless you were nonverbal almost, or you were basically completely disabled. That's how people saw it. But now people realize, no, it's a spectrum. And there's different versions of severity, different levels of severity. The 12 steps, yeah. What else would I have you read? I'll have to think about it and get back to you because there's been a bunch of good stuff I've read. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But the 12 steps are definitely good too, that's for sure. They'll never tell you anything of substance, George says. Correct. Adderall is addictive. P.S. I like your stories. Oh, I appreciate that, Bear. Adderall definitely is addictive because it's a drug of abuse. Now, sometimes people that have ADHD, it kind of just levels them out, but it can certainly be a drug of abuse too. I'm drawn to several autistic people. They are so smart. I mean, many of them are, but I don't know if all of them are. My mom would tell me growing up, I like how British say mum. I thought I was autistic. I fobbed her off as I didn't act like my brother, but I now understand female autism can be different. My friend Kelly on the spectrum. And with women, they can actually be more verbally fluent. And that's one of the things with men. A lot of times they're more awkward and not socially calibrated, but it can show up differently in women. And there was a theory for a while that undiagnosed autism could turn into borderline. I'm not sure if that's true, though. My ex isn't smart, but a very gifted singer. There's always trade-offs out there. Bear says, wow, Kat, what are female autistics like? Well, that's something I should go over with my friend if she's willing to talk about it with me. We can talk about the tism. Because we both are, and that's why we get along a little bit too. We both got a little bit of the tism. And she's also a narcissistic abuse survivor, CPTSD from the family. She's in the middle of writing a book right now about it. Not just the book, she's writing a trilogy. which is pretty cool. But while you're all here, make sure you like the video while you're here, and perhaps share the video to someone that you think might benefit. Many moons ago, 1 hour and 49 minutes ago, we started this off by talking about spiritual narcissists, and I was ripping that person in the Instagram comment section because they deserved it, by the way. Women can be better at being more social, good at masking, can make friends but not be close to them. That makes perfect sense, Kat, because women are generally more communal, collective, and so autism. And so they are good at masking a lot of times, but it can be exhausting for them. And you're right, because they don't, with the women friends, it's just a little bit different. Like they often play a role, and often it can be a motherly role to other friends. But this is something to go over with Kelly. So you're pro confrontation of a-holes. Yes. Well, here's the thing about that, though. Part of the reason why I say yes is because I can make content out of it. If it was my own life, not always. It would depend on the situation. So some cases, yeah, speak your mind, stand up and have some courage. Other times, the best thing to do is nothing. Other times, the best response is no response. And don't jade. And that's the other thing, though. If I'm talking to a real jerk, I don't want to wind up in some circular conversation. You say your piece, you let it out, and then that's that. But this person was more of like what I would consider a spiritually narcissistic person. And what they always do, they go straight to blaming the victim. Oh, you just allowed this to happen. There's no such thing as an abuser or a victim. And you are really just self-harming the whole time. They are only mirroring you, and they give the abuser a free pass. And they jump straight to, where's your accountability? Where's your responsibility? And they don't give the victim, like, they don't even believe there's a victim to begin with, but then they don't give them any support, encouragement, validation, straight to your fault, you're responsible. And I get it. There's a time for personal responsibility. There's a time for accountability. And that time, to me, is in stage 2 of healing. How far or how long does it take to get into stage 2? That depends on each individual person. But it's not right away. It's not right away. And people have to go on their journey. It takes different amount of time for different people. Gabriel says, that's why I don't confront them. It goes nowhere. It's bad faith. And sometimes they actually believe the bullshit they say. And that's a fair assessment. Because I do also say, don't bother explaining yourself to people that are committed to misinterpreting you. Yes, very true. And so sometimes I'll say things in a comment section just to not leave some BS out there. So I correct it so that the rest of the people there don't get misled. But many other times, you're right. If there's no point, there's no point. They only believe their own lies. They want to empower you before nurturing you. Yeah. That type of psychology. I don't like confrontation, but I won't be a doormat. Good. Because being a doormat doesn't help anyone. And that's what I'd also say. Treat yourself the way you would somebody you really care about. So if you have a friend, what would you tell your friend to do in a situation? And for people that have been less assertive in the past, I think that's a good rule of thumb. What would you tell your friend to do in this situation? If you had a child, what would you tell them to do in this situation? Just a good way to see it. You should kick your existing butt, Cat. Your ex's butt, you mean? Yeah, well, yeah, Cat's ex seems out of control. A cheating and a manipulative musician. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be a fruitful relationship. If anything, it'd be some sort of trauma bond. But that's why Kat's here. Kat's here. So she's empowered now. Kat's empowered, and she'll be able to see through that nonsense from a mile away. And if she has any questions about it, She can certainly share about it in the chat, and we'll go over it. Gabriel says, I have tons of tolerance for being mistreated. I dissociate and numb out and then feel upset long after the abuse. That's actually probably a common experience with people with CPTSD. I think I used to be more like that. But, because there's a thing, though. That's an argument to confront as well, because sometimes if you let it out, it doesn't stay with you. Now, granted, I'm not saying to like let it out and then turn it into a huge circular discussion that goes nowhere. But sometimes it feels good to speak your mind briefly, and it helps you to let it go. And it helps you to not like stay stuck in it, in my opinion. But we always got to pick and choose our battles. Not every time will I tell someone to do that. Other times, I'll tell you to walk away. X's, yes, I thought that's what you meant, Bear. No accountability, waste of time and effort. Generally, Ellie, again, what I do as a creator, sometimes I wouldn't recommend because I try to find teaching opportunities. So as doing what I do, I could go over that and say, all right, well, there's a lot of things to talk about there. It gives me an opportunity to talk about spiritual narcissism, invalidating, gaslighting, flipping the script, blaming victims, and all that good stuff. But if I wasn't a creator, maybe you leave one comment and then you keep it moving. White Bear, me too. Cito, you have a therapist, Gabriel. Yes, Bear, good idea that you feel like that. Yeah, there you go. Love to see the chat coming together. And if any of you also have other recommendations or requests that I interview someone, I'm trying to reach out to at least a few people a day because I need to be doing 2 interviews a week, I think, if not 3. And then 2 to 3 lives a week, if not more. And then continuing in all the shorts. And I haven't really been doing as many solo, longer videos. They're actually harder for me now to do, now that I'm used to going live. I don't know. And when I do a recorded video, I don't have a chance to interact with people. So I like this chance to interact and talk. I never met a bad autistic guy until I got involved with my ex. Sucks. Well, there's also a chance that he wasn't just autistic. He could also be narcissistic. Some people, even professionals, believe autism can't be comorbid with narcissism. And that's just not true. I think they can be comorbid. Because there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's some autistic people that claim they're autistic and then they act just like a narcissist. It's like, wow. What kind of people are you looking to interview? I'd be happy to do one. I'm a singing teacher for 19 years. Well, I talk to people about narcissistic abuse, dating, current events, sometimes supplements, sometimes other random things. It would just depend. We're going to check out some of your stuff, or if you have any stuff online. Yes, he was definitely narcissistic too. Yeah, for sure. I mean, almost anything can be comorbid. A lot of people don't like to think that. They'll think, but I think Christian made a good point too with the borderline and narcissism, that I do think a borderline and narcissistic operating system are just different. Now, granted, the behaviors can look similar, but the actual operating system, there's a narcissistic operating system and a borderline operating system. And I think they're different things. I believe my mother's mother was autistic and a narcissist both. I believe it, Jolly. I definitely believe that. George says, by telling you that you are not a victim, it's a way of telling you that you were an active participant in the abuse. It's done to empower you. I had a psychologist tell me. See, I think sometimes they have their heart in the right place when they say that. Sometimes. But I also think many other times they're really just trying to be antagonistic. And there's something about it where they just love blaming the victim about it. They just love making sure that it's just not the abuser's fault. No, you need to share in some of this as well. And granted, George, I agree we should all be taking a look at our side of the street eventually. But you gotta be very careful how you say it. You want to have some empathy and some compassion about it and some wisdom. And you don't share that to people right away. Because I do agree, I'm for empowering and I'm for people not staying a victim. But I'm very particular about how I do that. And I think that's what some people are missing. They're not very particular with how they do it. It was said to me while in court for DV in 2018, their way of saying save your tears. The Weeknd would say that too. And I just think that's overall invalidating. Some people, it's just acid in their mouth to say to the victim, yes, you've been abused and we're sorry. There's just something about it. They don't like that very much. And so they jump straight to, you just allowed it. But to me, that feels more gaslighting like. If someone's ready and maybe they're trying to learn about the red flags, learn about what they could have done differently. And that's how I phrase it too. It's about how you word it. Don't say you allowed it. Say, what can you learn from the situation? Tell me about a situation. Let's think about what we can learn from it. And that's a much better way to phrase it, I think. That is just more emotionally safe. We'll put it like that. Ellie says, that is cool. You taught singing for so long. Hopefully you can go live with Jared. Yeah, well, we'll take a look at that. Verbatim. I second that, Ellie. How about that? How about that? That would be pretty interesting. Like I said, we'll to see, like my other guests will come along here too. Agree that music heals like nothing else. I've never been done tons of work on myself, and nothing has helped me more than voice lessons. I think it's very good for the soul, voice lessons. It's a way to release feelings and traumas and emotions, etc., I would say. I gave you my website and YouTube channel. Where'd you do that? In here? There we go. Wow. I don't think it lets like links come in, I think. I think that's the problem. Yes, it is. I majored in classical voice. Well, you can shoot me an email. I like to sing. I'm all for you singing then, Kat. I think it's a very therapeutic thing. There's nothing more healing than singing at the top of your lungs in the car, I would say. Better than therapy and coaching a lot of times. Definitely. Because it hits on part of you that other stuff, it's meant to touch on other things. But it's just different. All right, everybody. I think about time to wrap up here. I'll do my Cinderella routine now that it's 12:05 a.m. my time. The wizard's a bit of a vampire, I'm sure you've noticed. Charlie says, yes, it is. I majored in classical voice and piano in college. It operates and lights up different parts of the brain too, no doubt. Yeah, so George, Ellie, Jolly, Kat, Gabriel, Angela, everyone else. Till we meet again. Till we meet again. Thanks for all the contributions in here too. It's always great. It was always great to have you on here. Bear. Good night, Bear. Voice lessons to talk. What do you mean by that? I think voice lessons are great for healing. Talk therapy is great for different things. But I think they're both great in their own way, is what I would say. You got it, Kat. You got it, everybody. It's always been a pleasure